Welcome to the Radiantpreneur Rising Show with me, Jess Tomlinson. Interviews to inspire a new movement of leaders and entrepreneurs. The ones who lead with vulnerability and authenticity, stand in visibility, allowing themselves to truly be seen, are fierce and playful and sexy. Choose business as a spiritual practice. Seek collaboration versus competition. No, giving back is not an option. It's a necessity. They do it their way. They radiate. They rise. Now, let's rise together. All right. Welcome, everyone, back to the Radiantpreneur Rising Show. I'm Jess Tomlinson, and I'm so excited for my guest today. We know each other because we are in a community together, but we've only sat together once at lunch and kind of briefly talked. And she's just fresh back from like a beautiful experience in Hawaii with Angela Rose Fields, who I had interviewed on the show a while back. You can go and check out that episode. And she's just a beautiful human, and I'm super excited to see where this conversation goes. So please welcome everyone, Kendall Frey.
Yay, thanks so much for having me. So excited. We only met briefly, but just really loved your energy, and yeah, when this connection happened, super excited to chat with you.
Yay, I know. I'm super excited too. It was fun because I knew your name, but I didn't know who you were, right? And then we were sitting at the table together and I'm like, wait a minute, you're going on Angela's retreat. So
Yep, that's you.
I know. And then when Lucia, who's also been a guest on this show, Lucia Pavone, recommended you to come on, it's just like, I love all those like synchronistic, serendipitous moments.
Totally. Yeah, me too. The little magic moments.
I know, magic, which I know you're all into. So I'm excited to like
Yeah.
dive into pieces of that if the conversation goes that way, which I have a feeling it will.
Yeah.
So there's only one question that I ask at the beginning, and that is, how are you currently leaning into your visibility edges, both in life, business, both, because we know it's all the same. They bleed into each other in a beautiful way and a hard way sometimes. So how are you currently leaning into your visibility edges?
Yeah, and they definitely bleed together, especially when it's like a personal brand and it's just you. It's a funny thing that you asked that, because this has really been like my work this year for myself, and on so many different levels, specifically around like using my voice and being more vocal and just being more bold. And right lately that's looked like actually speaking. So in the business academy, the community we're in, that's looked like some really intense breakthroughs in front of a crowd of people that helped break open some of that for me, and just getting out there more in front of groups and communities and seeing how much growth I've had with that and how much comfortability I have with that now has been really really awesome, because I know that the mission I have feels so much bigger than me. And I was really just getting in the way of the mission because of fear of being visible or speaking out. So being visible right now just looks like getting out there in communities, speaking to groups, holding space for community.
Beautiful. Yeah, I saw on your social media, I was kind of looking just to see what you've been posting around lately. And I really loved that you shared around play and sensuality or sexuality, and how those have been huge pieces for you in, really owning your voice. It sounded like they're all kind of tied together. And in my work, those are humongous, important pieces, because I play with 3 different leadership archetypes for the feminine, and they all impact our visibility. And one of them is the playful child, and one of them is the sexy feminine. And so when I read that, I was like, yes, I love that you're like leaning into those. Can you tell us a little bit about how those have maybe been both challenging for you, but then how you've been working through integrating more play and sensuality, sexuality.
And really sensuality, play, and like throat chakra, using my voice, have been the three main like pillars of growth for me this year.
Yeah.
I do feel they all go so well together, and they kind of, the growth of one feeds off of the growth of another, and just creates like a beautiful expansion in all of them.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been difficult at times, especially navigating and learning how to embody all of them. Because at first, when I was starting to really dive into the work with those, it didn't seem as intuitive for me to be able to embody all of them at the same time, the playful child and being sensual and being bold and loud. So we don't have a lot of great examples of that in our society, of embodying them all. People being bold and loud, but like hurting people with their voice, or being playful but kind of timid and not really learning to use their voice to be sensual, or people being like sensual and being labeled as like slutty or whatnot.
Yes.
So had to really break down some old paradigms or programming in myself to be able to embody and integrate those together. And of course, it's still a process and it's still a journey, but I would say that was the difficult part of it. But when you let yourself lean into those things, it's so much more fun, and there's so much more magic that unfolds, whether it's in like personal life or business. Like everything just kind of flows a lot easier.
Yeah. And what was one of those kind of paradigms you were holding? What do you think was like the biggest one that you've had to work through that's been the most challenging?
I do think it was around like sexuality and sensuality, and like what I perceived as like okay in ways I put myself out there in the world. And those shifts came after actually a car accident I had earlier this year.
Wow.
It felt like it really just shook some things energetically loose in me that had been kind of hidden, and brought them up for me to actually look at and realize that I was kind of stuffing down parts of myself for pretty much my entire life, that just to kind of fit in what was like normal in society.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, this is the piece that I'm so passionate about, that I feel like a lot of times gets skipped over, when we talk about business or being a leader, making an impact. It's like all these pieces around being seen, and just what a big difference it makes to really do that inner witchy woman work that I know you're so passionate about, right? And like,
Yeah.
yeah. So what have you noticed since you've been working through that? Like how do you feel like you're showing up differently? Or, I'm all about like, how do you feel? Because I think at the end of the day, that matters the most. But you could also talk about, the impact that maybe you see other people receiving your work around. What are some thoughts around that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel totally different from last year or even earlier this year. Um, I I feel so much more of like a deeper level of myself than I've ever felt. Um, like confidence and embodiment and trust and surrender, and it's definitely been showing in the external too, because of that, just in the way other people receive me, or other people even making comments like, wow, you're so different from when I met you a few months ago. And just getting to have that reflected back, that rapid growth, because of what I've let be unleashed or what I've leaned into, is pretty great. And then to see that translate in business too, and
Yeah.
the impact, like clients get a bigger impact when you embody that, when you lean into all the parts of yourself and let that all out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you said like embodying all of those pieces. So my third archetype is
the Radiant Rebel, which is all about being bold. So it's hilarious that I love that you're like talking about those 3 specific pieces, because they are so important. And it sounds like you've just come to realize within yourself that those pieces are important. And that's kind of how it worked for me too. It was like this weird serendipitous thing where I had a photo shoot, which is a whole like visibility, like transformation on its own. And I realized I was embodying these 3 different archetypes. Like my outfits were very different. And like, you know, we're told so often as a personal brand that we have to be one thing. And that is personal branding. And I'm like, I take such a fierce stance against that. And I come from professional branding. Like I was a branding manager at a magazine company. Like,
oh my God,
and so that works for like a physical product, but a human being is so multidimensional that it's all these different pieces, right? That it sounds like you've really come to know when you embody that. It's like, for me, that's the ultimate freedom. And yeah, right? You resonate with that too. Yeah.
When you said that, I was thinking of in the past when someone told me, that doesn't seem very on brand for you. And I said,
oh my God,
what do you mean? My brand's me. I can do what I want with my brand.
Thank you. Oh my God. It drives me nuts. It's like, it's just, for me, it reinforces that pretty package. Like, let's just put a pretty package around this human being that is so, you know, multi-layered and has a full range of feelings. And it's like we're missing that piece in this realm of, you know, spirituality and coaching and personal development, where we're just, what I witness is we get so much in like this fear zone of like, oh my gosh, I have to be a brand and I have to like package myself because that's what's going to make people comfortable or make them resonate with me. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it might be fun temporarily because, you know, like it's kind of artistic and like you're putting yourself in this nice little package. But in the end, like the long term, and I'm curious if you've experienced this, it gets exhausting. It's like you're constantly trying to like figure out, okay, what's my brand, or like what's on brand for me, or can I use this color in this thing, and like just all this crap, right?
Yeah, and people don't even really care about that. They just resonate with people and their stories, and it's like, I don't want to, you know, if I see a nice pretty brand, it's like, okay, great, yeah, they're doing it, maybe they're successful, but it doesn't make me feel like I know them. And like when I choose to work with people, it's because like I feel a resonance, or maybe something in their story, or they're really like laying it all out there and really like honor how bold they are and how like truthful they are. So I mean, people don't resonate with just like straight up businesses anymore. It's like we're humans wanting human connection.
What's something bold that you feel like you've shared lately? Or
There's a number of things, but one thing that comes to mind, because I do have like family or people from my past when I grew up in a very religious setting. So I have people from there on Facebook and both on like social media and on other like podcast episodes, I've been calling myself a witch. And my conservative family, or these people from my religious past, are probably seeing that like, whoa, what the fuck? So that was definitely bold, but I think I feel comfortable. No, I know I feel comfortable sharing that now because of the work I've done on myself.
And would you be willing to talk a little bit about like how you were able to get over that hump? Because I know that's something that comes up so much when I coach people. It's like this fear of, it's usually one of 2 things. It's either the people that I don't know, like who's out there on social media, kind of this fear of the unknown, or it's the fear of the people that know me. Like, oh my God, but there's all these people that know me and they're going to see this part of me that I don't normally share. So can you speak a little bit to that? Like, how did you move through that as a healing or a mindset shift or transformation to be able to feel comfortable starting to speak about the witch?
Yeah. And there's so many layers to that too. And definitely been a journey of that coming out. Because even when I started my brand, I didn't even really know that's like the direction I was leading with this.
Yeah.
A big part of it, I think, is the community I've leaned into over the years, and like the community I keep around me, because it's people who resonate with that path and who support me in speaking my truth.
Yeah.
So yes, you can totally do the work alone and I've done the internal work around it too. But having people to support you is so important, because you don't have to be alone in this. And even especially with like witchy paths or whatnot, if you look back at like witches or pagans or whatever, it's all about like getting together in community and doing these practices in groups and community. So for me, that's been really important. And also just practice of getting out of my comfort zone. I pretty much am constantly at least somewhat out of my comfort zone in my life. And sometimes it gets exhausting, so I'm like way out, so I got to slow down a bit. But it's just been years and years and years of getting out of my comfort zone constantly. So something like that doesn't feel scary anymore, because I'm used to being uncomfortable.
Yeah. So it's not community and then practice being uncomfortable. It sounds like really, I'm with you. I think the community piece for me does a couple of things. It normalizes the feelings that come up, right? Like, oh my God, am I crazy for even having this fear around putting myself out there and being worried what people that I know think? Because hands down, almost everybody is like, me too. Right. And so you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. And then there's the like, all right, so since I now feel like normal, which helps take away the stigma, because we just like punish ourselves, right? Like if we're feeling like we're alone, then we just punish ourselves. So it's like when we can start having compassion and normalize these emotions and feelings around our visibility, it's like, then the community can create safety for us as well. At least for me, like, it's like, okay, I know that I have a group of people who get this, who have my back. So even if I put myself out there and say like a family member is like, oh my God, you're going to hell, or like whatever, right? For the extreme, like religious families, then I know that it's not going to be the end of the world, that I'm going to have people to like, of course it's hard. Like, let's acknowledge that that would be a hard thing, but that the people who get it and are with me will provide that safe place to land. At least that's how it helps me.
Totally. And also just like recognizing that what you gain from sharing these things is so much more than like the potential risk or potential fears. Every time I share something like that, I feel good, because people are seeing the real me. I'm not hiding behind some like fake screen. And I get so many more responses or messages from people who are like, thank you so much for sharing that, because I totally feel the same, and I thought I was crazy. And that's so worth it to offer support for people like that.
For sure. And a lot of people have brought that up on these interviews lately, like how being really real and really sharing these inner thoughts or experiences that might feel to both us and people who, follow us or are in our communities, like we're the only ones that are experiencing them. It really does. It's that normalizing. I don't know. For me, that is so important. And people keep bringing up how they're getting lots of messages too. So I love that. I just lost my train of thought. Wow, that doesn't happen that often. I love it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, and for those of you watching, like if you don't get a ton of messages, then one thing that helps me if I'm not getting a lot of feedback for things that I put out there is to just remember to always do it for your own healing as well. Like at the end of the day, like that's the only thing we can guarantee anyways. And for you to do that is just, wow, like that is the journey of being an entrepreneur on the spiritual path. And you never know what kind of ripple that you might be making. And you have to like trust, right? That there are ripples being made that you may never know about. And so for me, I always have to come back, and it always feels a little selfish when I say this, but I don't hear a lot of people saying it. So I like to really own this, that I have to do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And totally agree, especially when it's around like learning to be visible and using your voice and healing in that sense. Like you gotta just do it anyway. And even if you don't hear from people, it's helping someone. I've totally had people come around like a year later and say they've been watching all my stuff and like have never actually commented on it.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're impacting someone, even if it's just one person. It's like you're changing one person's life. Like you're changing a whole human's life. That's amazing.
So amazing. Yeah. So amazing. So I want to talk about the witch.
Okay.
I want to hear, so you mentioned that like you never expected that this would be something that you would be talking about. So can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of how this has become an important message for you?
Yeah. And, you know, it's something that I didn't even really embody or think was me for a long time. It's funny because one of my oldest friends, like a couple months ago, was telling me that when we were like 7, I was telling her like, I think I'm a witch, and was like talking about all of these weird things that was happening. And I don't have any recollection of that at all, which is so interesting, but it totally makes sense. And then I went through Baptist school for so long, so I feel like that was almost brainwashed out of me and labeled as evil. So I just kind of put it to the side. And as I started doing, like years ago, started doing inner work and wanting to figure out what my path was and like what felt purposeful for me, what my passions were, and was just tired of the communities of going to 9 to 5, going out to drink, going home and watching Netflix. I started to work on myself and create more space for just being and leaning into communities that were kind of witchy, even though they didn't say it. And weird stuff just started happening.
Like what? I want to know.
Like one of the first instances where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of lost this side of me for a while, and yeah, there's something here, was I had connected with a woman on Instagram when I was just doing a blog and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And she wanted to collaborate on something with 3 other women. And she's like, okay, let's all have like a little retreat weekend in Utah to, you know, work on some of this. So I flew to Utah to stay with 4 women I had never met online.
Nice.
Yeah. And we ended up doing a photo shoot in front of a cemetery. It's like, ooh, these are my people, because I kind of I've always had a thing for like cemeteries since I was a kid. And I didn't really know why, and everyone thought it was really weird. Like, what do you mean you want to go hang out in a cemetery? So we went, and when we went the day before the photo shoot, we're kind of walking around, just checking out the gravestones, because I like to just read them and just kind of see people's lives. And I was walking with one of the women on one side, one on the other, both very intuitive people. And as we walked by, I saw like a short shadow run across the tree, and then got a chill go up my spine to my head. And they both got chills, and then my vision got blurry for the whole part of that walk. And it's like, couldn't really see anything. And then we left. And the next day we came back for the photo shoot, and my friend on the left had said, ooh, that felt like a child spirit. And the next day we came back to go check what was in front of that tree, and it was 5 infant gravestones.
Oh my
So it's like,
God.
oh, okay, something happened there. And that was kind of the first instance of things opening, allowing things to open up again.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot more started happening after that. And then I closed it off out of fear. And then the car accident blew it back open.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy how trauma blows things open? Like,
Yeah.
that's what happened with me when my 2 friends died. My very dear best friend passed, and I was with her. I talk about this on almost every episode. So sorry, everyone, if you're annoyed hearing about my friend, but it's such a big part of like who I am now and how I view the world. And of course, right, it's a huge event. And then my second friend died 4 months later, very suddenly. Like, we were all 3 musketeers, 3 peas in a pod growing up. So it was very like, what? And after that, I had 3 crazy psychic experiences all in a row where I was like it was like the most powerful I ever had like noticed my intuition to ever be. So I just wanted to highlight that. Do you have anything you'd like to say about why trauma or kind of experiences like that really blow us open?
And I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of my personal experience with it was it kind of initiated a Kundalini awakening. So I think that was part of why the intuitive all started to blow open again.
Yeah.
But from just what I hear from other people's stories, it seems like if we're kind of ignoring our calling or ignoring our intuition or like forcefully shutting things, it's like a little universal, like not even nudge. It's just like, hey, like wake up call. Like you can't really shut this part of you down forever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it seemed like for me, at least.
Yeah. Right. The wake up call. Like, if we're not paying attention, then oh my God.
Not to say that's always how it has to happen.
I know.
I'm like, okay, I'm listening.
I know. Do you feel like, though, for some people, like for me, I know that that's, I would prefer it not to be that way, but I can literally tell you every single like thing that has happened in clusters of like big things that has just like redirected me in a way that I've needed it, you know? And I'm like, all right, universe, this is what I signed up for, apparently, is like big shifts and changes. Like, I need like the slap across the face to like shift.
Totally. Yeah. And I was totally doing it just accelerated after that accident. It's just unreal to see like all of the things that have lined up after.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So then how did you start using your voice to speak about the witch? And tell us a little bit more, maybe even like what you mean when you refer to witch, just from your own personal definition or perspective, whatever you want to share with people.
Yeah, and there's so many different groups or communities or traditions that might use that word, and some people might be more strict about it and say you have to be initiated by a coven or whatnot. But I call myself a green witch. It seems to be known as a bit more of like a solo path with it.
Mm-hmm.
And being a witch is more of like a practice than there's like religions that have witchcraft in them, but this is just like a practice, and I don't follow any religion. It's just my own thing. And the way I see it is really just it tends to be like a working with the earth and like the rhythms of the earth and magic and energy and all that fun stuff. And I used to use the word witchy a lot because I was afraid to own just the word witch. It seemed safer to say witchy.
Ooh, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
I
So I see a
noticed
lot of
that.
people doing yeah. It's a lot bolder to say I'm a witch than like, oh, I'm kind of witchy.
Yes. Ooh, good point, Kendall.
Yeah. Yeah, so really after the car accident is when I started using that word.
Wow.
And I do think it came with safety of community of other friends also starting to lean into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And so what are some of those practices that you live, you know, day to day, that you feel like are the practice of being a witch?
Yeah, and it'll vary for sure. Like definitely do like ceremonies or practices around like different moons or solstices or equinoxes, or
Yeah.
like we just had Samhain, so that was like ancestor honoring.
Oh,
Um,
what is that?
so Samhain, it's on Halloween.
Okay, I
But it's
figured
like,
when you said that, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, the veil's thinner and it's like a festival. It's on the pagan wheel of the year.
Mm,
But usually there's like ritual and ceremony around honoring ancestors
mm,
that have passed. Yeah. Yeah, and then daily I kind of just let it flow. I do a lot of like intentional earth connection and work with herbs for medicine.
mm.
Have like an altar, so I'll do some practices there, blend in like energy and other things, or just,
Yeah.
connecting with the divine for whatever wants to come through, things like that.
Yeah. Beautiful. So it sounds like you're really kind of more of a, what do I need in the moment? What practice can I? Yeah, I'm the same way. Like it drives me crazy when people are like, what's your everyday routine? I was like, that would be boring for me. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't. I've tried it. It didn't work. It just stressed me out.
Yeah, similar. I think that oftentimes, you know, we think or we're told that in order to make progress towards whatever growth we're wanting to experience, that it needs to be this repetitious action, which is very, for lack of a better term, very like masculine. You know, it's a very, which I like to use the word devotion. Like when you're devoted, then there is a gentle repetition as needed, but it's not like this like rigorous same thing all the time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that for me that just elicits like stagnancy if I'm doing the same thing all the time. I can't live
Yeah,
like that.
I know. Are you an Aquarius?
I am.
I thought so. I'm an Aquarius too. I feel
Oh,
like
fun.
there's not very many of us. Did you know it's the rarest sign?
Oh, did not know that.
I know, either did I, but me and a couple of my closest friends, they are both Virgos. They were saying that their sign is actually the most common, which I was like, oh, wow, interesting. I didn't know that there was a more common. And then I
Yeah.
looked up, because I'm a geek like that, and I like to research that Aquarius is the least common. Which I was like, oh.
Interesting. I'm so curious. I wonder what month that would mean people are conceived in. Like
I
people are
know.
like getting it on less
I
whenever
know.
Aquariuses are born.
Yeah, I've done the math with Ben a few times because we were calculating, and now I forget what month.
That's funny.
I
I don't know.
know.
I've still drawn a lot of Aquarii, so
You do?
yeah.
Well, I need more. So I'm searching for that. I actually you'll appreciate this. One of my previous clients and dear friends, her name is Denise Elizabeth Byron. She lives in Santa Cruz, and she hosted women's circles where you get in touch with your womb and do like a tantric dance practice. And during, like, a lot of my best friend who passed, Mary Jane, she was an Aquarius, born on Valentine's Day. And she kept coming through and like telling Denise that I needed more Aquarius friends, which I really feel. So I'm grateful to know you now.
I love when there's little support and messages from friends that have passed. I get that a lot from a friend of mine. He comes to my dreams a lot. It's really, really nice.
Who has passed? A friend that
Yeah,
comes to visit you.
yeah,
Yeah.
earlier this year, yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that. So hard.
Yeah, very young too.
Yeah.
But now I have like a little guardian angel, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's see. As we're kind of on the tail end of this, is there anything that you really want to talk about that feels important that we haven't gone down?
Yeah, something that's coming up right now for me is, 'cause I know you probably have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this,
Mhm.
and just coming out of a Thrive business event this weekend, and just seeing
Okay.
how intense it can get for people when they really want to make things happen,
Mhm.
is the importance of creating space for yourself. I was having a conversation with someone this weekend. They're like, I totally understand that space is where the creativity comes through and the trust and the flow, but I have so many things to do. I just can't possibly create space. And
Mhm.
I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but if you find yourself in that boat, um, I just really want to emphasize the importance of having space to just like connect with yourself, connect with the earth. That's been a really big thing for me for finding the flow.
Mhm.
Um, because it's really where the magic comes through, is in the space. If you just are inundated with tasks and things, then there's no room for something to surprise you.
Mhm. Yes, I love this message. I love it so much. And yeah, I realize that everybody has different circumstances. Like, I don't have kids. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a job that I have to go to that's like, 9 to 5 or like specific hours. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, most of the people who watch this are entrepreneurs. And so we create our own reality, and I know that there can be kids and partners and all that stuff. And when I first started my business, I was a self-care coach for a very good reason, because
Mm-hmm.
I like to teach what I need to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I used to feel that way too. And again, I don't have kids. And so that's kind of a different bag. And what I would say to everybody that does have a fuller life with children, which is a whole different responsibility, is that what I've learned from witnessing many of my friends with children that run their own businesses is that they really have to step up their receiving muscle and asking for support muscle,
Yeah, totally.
because it comes back to our conversation around community, right? Like, and I feel so grateful to have witnessed multiple people have babies within the last few years and just learned so much from how they've had to ask for support
Mm.
and been like, whoa, like I'm going to do this and it's okay. And we can, and we should be there for each other. And I think it can be really easy to get lost in our own bubble,
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess this goes for everybody too, right? And maybe you can speak to
Yeah.
your experience of how have you been able to really create space for yourself, or how have you witnessed other people that might have, do you have kids?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have like, I was just going to say, for me, I can only speak to like witnessing other people that have like fuller lives with children, right? With children. So yeah, anything you want to say along this? Like, how have you been able to create that?
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, it's people have hectic schedules sometimes. And I do see people with kids really creating space for themselves, or involving their kids in the spaciousness they create, which is really beautiful too.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I've really just, as I've embodied and integrated these different parts of myself, the space has kind of naturally happened, the prioritization of it. Um, because I used to try and like create space, try and like almost schedule in space.
Mm.
And I think when it came with the more of an like identity shift, it was just so much more natural. So what
Mhm.
part of you doesn't want to create space for yourself? What part of you thinks that you have to put everyone else first, or that by doing all of these tasks you'll be more successful than if you have more space? And kind
Right.
of just look at that part first, because the forcing of it isn't gonna make it last.
Yes.
Do you know it's like this pyramid that's like the logical levels of change or something like that? Have
Oh
you heard of that?
no. No, no, no.
So at the bottom is environment, and then there's behaviors and values and beliefs and identity and purpose. And
Mm.
people often, especially with like New Year's resolutions, try and change environment and behaviors. And it's really hard. It's like hitting a wall or swimming upstream, and it usually doesn't stick. But when you change on these higher levels, like beliefs, identity, purpose, it then trickles down, and the behaviors and the environment just kind of naturally shift, because you're the kind of person that has a beautiful space in your home for yourself. You're the kind of person that makes space in your day for you, or that takes your kids outdoors with you instead of sitting in front of the TV at night. And it's just so much more natural that way.
Yes. It's really, that to me is change from the inside out versus outside in.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, same here. And the reason why I like to use the archetypes in my work is because they're identity pieces. Like, what parts of ourselves are, you know, really attached or longing or striving to be something, instead of just really giving ourselves permission to be nothing and be everything. It's like that paradox, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that. It's
Yeah.
really, I mean, that's the magic.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point around the self-care piece. And I know for me, I remember when it was really hard for me to slow down, I realized that it was because I love being the hero. I love it. Like, I'm just like, it's definitely something that I've had to work on, not finding my validation by saving people or being that friend that's always willing to, and that's still a huge important piece to me, because friendship is very, very important. And yet, if it really isn't, a relationship that's serving me, or like, I really do have other things that are more important to, my soul, or it's just such a dance of really figuring out, what you need, and yet also what's important to you, right? And being willing to say no with love and create healthy boundaries, and
have maybe sometimes awkward conversations.
That too. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yay for awkward conversation.
Yeah. Definitely. Good things usually come from it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. Beautiful. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to end with?
Let's see. Not necessarily, but just for me, the last 2 years, the word surrender has been so huge, and I think with that comes like an embodiment of trust, and still knowing and stating what you want, but being unattached to exactly how that'll look. And I mean, that's just another thing I'd want to share, and that's something I share with like everyone and clients and everything, because just that word is so important to me. And the embodiment of that is like why I think I'm where I am right now, and what's helped me get through some hard times.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. And I love that word too. Surrender and trust are huge for me.
Yeah.
Beautiful. This has been so yummy, Kendall. Thank you so much for coming on and just being willing to share your journey. And I'm excited to hear what people will get from this. Don't be afraid to find us and send us personal notes on social media. And all of the show notes, including kind of everything we've talked about today, ways to connect with Kendall, will be over at jessicatomlinson.com/show-36. This is episode 36. And what's your favorite way for people to connect with you, Kendall?
Probably Instagram.
Yeah?
On there, yeah.
Nice. And what's your handle?
It's Living Earthy.
Living Earthy. I love it. I couldn't remember if it was earthly. That's why I wanted to ask you.
I get that a lot. It's so interesting. For the last couple of years, everyone's like, earthly. I'm like, no, it's not.
Nope, earthy.
No
I know. Living Earthy. No L, people.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you more.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.